Welcome to True Crime Case Resolution, where we peel back the layers of some of the most intriguing and disturbing cases in modern history. Today, we explore a story that is as tragic as it is shocking, a tale of passion, betrayal, and murder. This is the story of how a young woman's forbidden love for her stepfather spiraled into a chilling act of revenge, ending in a gruesome murder that rocked a small town to its core. It was a hot summer day on July 12, 2018, in the quiet town of Pinehurst, North Carolina. The sun beat down mercilessly on the small community, where life seemed to pass at a slower pace, and everyone knew their neighbor's business. This was the kind of town where secrets didn't stay hidden for long, but one secret had managed to stay buried until it was too late. At the center of our story is 19-year-old Emily Carter. She was the kind of girl you'd expect to see in a college brochure, with her bright smile and infectious laughter. Emily had just returned home for the summer after finishing her first year at a nearby university. Her mother, Rebecca Carter, was a well-respected nurse in the community, known for her kindness and dedication to her patients. Rebecca had married Tom Carter 3 years earlier after meeting him through mutual friends. Tom, 45, was a charismatic businessman who had moved to Pinehurst from New York City, seeking a quieter life. Tom quickly became a beloved figure in Pinehurst, charming everyone with his easy smile and generous nature. To all appearances, the Carters were the picture-perfect family, but beneath the surface, tensions simmered. Emily and Tom's relationship had always been a bit complicated. When Tom first entered Emily's life, she had been a 16-year-old high school junior, not quite ready to accept a new father figure. Initially, Emily resented Tom for trying to replace her father, who had died in a tragic car accident years before. However, Tom was persistent in his efforts to win Emily over, treating her more like a friend than a daughter. Over time, Emily began to see him differently. She was drawn to his charisma, his worldliness, and the attention he showered upon her. By the time she left for college, Emily had grown closer to Tom than she ever imagined possible. They shared private jokes and long conversations, and Tom often confided in Emily about things he wouldn't share with her mother. Emily found herself looking forward to their talks, their connection growing deeper with each passing day. In early June 2018, everything changed. It was a warm Friday evening, and Emily was home for the weekend. Rebecca was working a late shift at the hospital, leaving Tom and Emily alone in the house. They decided to watch a movie together, something they'd done many times before, but this time the air was charged with an unfamiliar tension. As the credits rolled, Emily found herself unable to resist the pull she felt towards Tom. It was in that moment, with the room dimly lit by the TV, that Emily kissed him. The kiss was electric, a crossing of boundaries that could never be undone. Tom, surprised but not resistant, kissed her back. What started as a single kiss quickly escalated into a full-blown affair, their secret rendezvous taking place whenever Rebecca was at work or running errands. As the weeks went by, Emily became consumed by the affair. She knew it was wrong, but the thrill of the forbidden was intoxicating. She convinced herself that she and Tom were meant to be, that he was her soulmate. Tom, however, viewed their relationship differently. He was torn between his growing feelings for Emily and his commitment to Rebecca. He knew that if their secret ever got out, it would destroy the family. The turning point came in early July when Rebecca accidentally discovered a series of texts on Tom's phone. She had been looking for a recipe and stumbled upon the incriminating messages. Her heart pounded in her chest as she read through the exchanges, disbelief giving way to horror and rage. Confronting Tom, Rebecca demanded to know the truth. Tom initially denied everything, claiming that the texts were a joke, a misunderstanding. But Rebecca was not fooled. Her confrontation turned into a shouting match, with both hurling accusations and recriminations at each other. In a desperate bid to save their marriage, Tom confessed, begging Rebecca to forgive him and insisting that he loved her, not Emily. Rebecca was devastated. Her marriage was in shambles, and she felt betrayed by both her husband and her daughter. She confronted Emily later that evening, her voice shaking with anger and heartbreak. Emily, caught off guard, tried to justify her actions, insisting that she loved Tom and that they were meant to be together. But Rebecca was having none of it. She gave Emily an ultimatum: end the affair immediately or leave the house. For the next few days, the Carter household was a battlefield. Emily was furious with Tom for confessing, and even angrier with Rebecca for trying to keep them apart. Her dreams of a future with Tom were crumbling, and she felt trapped, desperate, and alone. As the tension mounted, Emily's thoughts turned dark, fueled by a potent mix of heartbreak and anger. On July 16, 2018, at around 9 p.m., Emily decided she had had enough. She waited until Rebecca left for her night shift at the hospital, then approached Tom with a plan. She begged him to leave with her, to run away and start a new life together. But Tom, guilt-ridden and conflicted, refused. He told Emily that they needed to end things, that it was the only way to move forward. Emily was shattered. Tom's rejection felt like a betrayal, a knife twisting in her heart. She stormed out of the house, her mind racing with thoughts of revenge. If she couldn't have Tom, she would make sure no one else could either. At around 10:30 p.m., Emily returned home, her heart pounding with adrenaline and fear. She found Tom in the kitchen, his back turned as he prepared a late-night snack. In a moment of blind rage, Emily grabbed a heavy cast-iron skillet from the stove and struck Tom on the back of the head. He collapsed to the floor, blood pooling around him as Emily stood frozen, the weight of what she'd done crashing down on her. Panic set in as Emily realized the gravity of her actions. Her mind raced as she considered her options, knowing that her life would never be the same. She thought of calling the police, of turning herself in, but the fear of prison, of losing everything, was overwhelming. As the clock ticked past midnight, Emily made a decision that would change the course of her life forever. She dragged Tom's lifeless body to the basement, desperate to hide the evidence of her crime. She knew she needed a plan, a way to cover up what she had done and escape the consequences. With trembling hands, Emily cleaned up the bloodstains in the kitchen, scrubbing the floor until it gleamed. She rehearsed her story in her mind, crafting a tale of self-defense, of an accident gone wrong. She hoped that the police would believe her, that she could convince them that she was the victim, not the perpetrator. As dawn broke over Pinehurst, Emily sat alone in the house, her mind racing as she waited for Rebecca to return. She knew that the moment of truth was approaching, that she would have to face the consequences of her actions. Her heart ached with fear and regret, but there was no turning back now. As dawn broke on July 17, 2018, Emily Carter sat in the kitchen of her family home in Pinehurst, North Carolina, her mind racing. She had spent the entire night trying to cover up the murder of her stepfather, Tom Carter. The once vibrant and charming man now lay lifeless in the basement, a victim of Emily's desperate and vengeful rage. She knew that the clock was ticking, and that soon she would have to face her mother, Rebecca, and explain Tom's absence. Rebecca returned home from her night shift at the hospital around 7:30 a.m., exhausted but relieved to be back. She immediately noticed that something was off. The house was eerily quiet, and Emily's anxious demeanor set off alarm bells in her mind. When she asked about Tom, Emily struggled to maintain her composure. She recounted a rehearsed story, claiming that Tom had left early for a business trip and that he wouldn't be back for a few days. Rebecca was suspicious but too tired to press further. She took a shower and went to bed, leaving Emily to grapple with her thoughts. Emily knew that her story wouldn't hold up for long. She needed to come up with a more concrete plan to ensure that no one discovered Tom's body. Around noon, Emily decided to take a drastic step. She called her best friend, Jenna Davis, and asked her to come over. Jenna, who had been friends with Emily since childhood, sensed the urgency in her voice and agreed to come right away. When Jenna arrived, she was shocked by Emily's disheveled appearance and the dark circles under her eyes. "What's going on, Em?" Jenna asked, concerned. Emily took a deep breath and decided to confide in Jenna. She told her everything about the affair, the confrontation, and the murder. Jenna was horrified, unable to believe what she was hearing. She knew that this wasn't some elaborate prank. Emily's fear was real, and the gravity of the situation hit her like a ton of bricks. "We have to go to the police," Jenna insisted. "This is serious, Emily. You can't handle this on your own." But Emily was adamant. She refused to turn herself in, convinced that she could cover up the crime. She begged Jenna to help her, playing on their years of friendship and loyalty. Reluctantly, Jenna agreed, not fully comprehending the consequences of her decision. The two friends spent the next few hours devising a plan. They decided to move Tom's body to a more remote location, hoping to delay its discovery. They wrapped the body in a tarp and loaded it into the trunk of Jenna's car, careful to avoid leaving any traces. The task was grueling, and the stench of death was overpowering, but they pressed on, driven by fear and desperation. As night fell, they drove to a secluded spot in the woods far from town. They dug a shallow grave and buried Tom's body, marking the spot with a large rock. The entire process took several hours, and by the time they finished, both girls were physically and emotionally drained. They returned home, hoping that their actions would buy them some time. The next few days were a blur of anxiety and paranoia. Emily and Jenna did their best to act normal, but the weight of their secret was unbearable. Rebecca grew increasingly suspicious of Tom's absence and Emily's erratic behavior. She decided to call Tom's office, hoping to get some answers. When she learned that Tom had not been to work in days and had not mentioned any business trip, her concern turned to fear. On July 22, 2018, Rebecca contacted the Pinehurst Police Department to report Tom missing. Officer James Carter, no relation, a seasoned detective with a keen eye for detail, was assigned to the case. He immediately sensed that something was off. The conflicting stories and Emily's nervous demeanor raised red flags. Officer Carter began his investigation by interviewing friends, neighbors, and colleagues of Tom. Everyone spoke highly of him, but no one had seen or heard from him since the evening of July 16th. The detective also took note of the strained relationship between Emily and Rebecca, suspecting that there was more to the story than met the eye. On July 24, 2018, Officer Carter obtained a warrant to search the Carter household. What he found confirmed his suspicions. In the basement, he discovered traces of blood that had seeped into the cracks in the floor. Forensic analysis confirmed that it was Tom's blood. With this evidence, Carter confronted Emily, who finally broke down and confessed to the murder. Emily's arrest sent shockwaves through the small town of Pinehurst. The news spread quickly, and the community was stunned by the revelation. The girl they had known as kind and cheerful had committed a horrific crime. As Emily was taken into custody, Jenna was also arrested for her role in helping to cover up the murder. The trial of Emily Carter began on October 15, 2018, attracting widespread media attention. Prosecutors painted a grim picture of Emily as a manipulative young woman who had seduced her stepfather and then killed him in a fit of rage. The defense, however, portrayed Emily as a troubled teenager who had been led astray by Tom and acted out of desperation. The courtroom was packed with spectators, including friends, family, and curious townspeople. Rebecca Carter sat in the front row, her face a mask of grief and disbelief. She had lost both her husband and her daughter in the span of a few weeks and was struggling to make sense of it all. As the trial progressed, new details emerged that further complicated the case. It was revealed that Tom had a history of inappropriate relationships with younger women, casting doubt on his character. The defense argued that Tom had manipulated Emily, taking advantage of her vulnerability and leading her into a destructive relationship. On November 3, 2018, after weeks of testimony and deliberation, the jury reached a verdict. Emily Carter was found guilty of second-degree murder and sentenced to 25 years in prison. Jenna Davis, who had cooperated with the authorities and testified against Emily, received a reduced sentence of 5 years for her role in the cover-up. The aftermath of the trial left the town of Pinehurst reeling. The once close-knit community was now divided, with some people sympathizing with Emily and others condemning her actions. Rebecca Carter, devastated by the loss of her family, moved away from Pinehurst, unable to bear the memories of what had happened. Emily's life in prison was a far cry from the carefree days of her youth. She struggled to adjust to the harsh realities of incarceration, haunted by the events that had led to her imprisonment. She spent her days reflecting on her choices and the consequences that had followed, grappling with guilt and regret. Jenna, meanwhile, served her sentence and was released on parole after 3 years. She returned to Pinehurst, where she faced a community that had not forgotten her role in the crime. She struggled to rebuild her life, carrying the weight of her involvement in Tom's murder. The story of Emily Carter and Tom Walker serves as a chilling reminder of the destructive power of forbidden love and the devastating consequences of unchecked emotions. It is a tale that continues to haunt the town of Pinehurst, a dark chapter in its history that will never be forgotten. This concludes documentary on true crime case resolution. Stay tuned for more stories of intrigue and suspense as we continue.